This tutorial is going to look at just how we alter the symbology of vector point data, just to clarify the relationships which we've identified through selecting our data. The last couple have looked at how we selected data spatially and also how we did it through attributes, and we should now have a file which is called Me the Early Christian SMR Sites, and this should be visible on your JS screen. It's not always worth changing the symbology and point data, and this is kind of up to yourselves and your own individual use of GIS. But if I were just to give you an example, if we turn back on the Me the SMR sites, we still have the one selected there which we picked out, if you remember, and we go into properties and we ask the GIS to give a different color symbol to each of the different classes represented in the sites and monuments record. So we get into class and go add all values. Using this color ramp, it's going to give different colors to every different class. But given the amount of different sites and different classes of sites, the efficacy of doing this with so many entries is limited. If we click OK, go back and look at our JS screen, we'll see that it actually appears quite crowded and there's very little information actually being given this way. However, when we're dealing with a smaller sample, specifically like the sample which we just exported, this can actually be a very effective way of showing different class types. So let's go back into the symbology of Me the Early Christian Sites SMR. And in Symbology, we'll go back into categories and we'll ask it to look in the class field. So we're expecting two values here. The first value will be our high crosses and the second will be our ecclesiastical sites. So here we are, these are the two. Now at the moment the GIS has given it two default symbols and two default colors according to this color ramp. But we want to be a little bit more specific than this. We actually want to change these values, not just the colors but also the symbols. And we can do that just by double clicking on the actual default symbol, and we're given this large list of different options. So for the ecclesiastical sites, I think I'm just going to stick with circles, and right here it's quite large at the moment, so let's bring that down. This is kind of a bit trial and error, but let's say put it at 6 and go OK. Now for the high crosses, let's choose an altogether different symbol, because we really want these to stand out from the ecclesiastical sites. So our options are either the pure color symbols, the multicolored symbols with the outline in black, or a series of other symbols. So let's go for the cross, and let's make sure that our size similarly is down to something manageable, say 8. Click apply, and let's go back to our JS. So we can see immediately that the GIS has displayed each of the sites differently depending on what its class was. So up here we have a high cross, and these circular sites here, and these points, these are ecclesiastical enclosures. Let's just for a point zoom in to one of these slightly more confused ones here, and we can see that we have our ecclesiastical enclosure surrounded by 4 high crosses. Similarly, and here, 2 high crosses next to an ecclesiastical enclosure, and if we wanted to actually see what ecclesiastical enclosure this was, we could use our query tool, select that, and it gives us the townland which it is a part of, and the SMR number. So it's interesting to note that while ecclesiastical settlements exist in isolation, it's unusual for high crosses to exist without ecclesiastical settlements. However, there's an obvious exception to this up here, where we have 3 high crosses and no ecclesiastical centre. It might well be that that is in the grounds or in close proximity to a church or another sites and monuments site which we haven't identified.